Welcome everyone to the another episode. Today we have a Mr. Rick Walker all the way from US, Texas. So he's an author of the forthcoming book, 9 Steps to Build a Life of Meaning, How to Unlock Your Mind, Happiness, Power, and Your Enemies Demise. So Rick is a renowned leader across multi-domain. As a founder, CEO, he built a 400 employee company, scaled a 2,000 plus team members, nonprofit into 53 countries as a chairman, and recruited 5 billion of capital investment to his hometown to generate 5,000 new jobs. And also his podcast and talks communicate deep insight into how mankind functions, rooted in his acquired knowledge of ancient literature, so world religions, strategies, and the arts. His central claim is that each of these domains communicates truth. So his background beyond business, including serving as the chairman of 150 million charitable foundation and director of Middle Eastern Religious College. Concurrently, he hosted the popular talk show in 2021 featuring long-form conversation with most powerful members of US Senate, US House of Representatives, the President Cabinet, Fortune 500, a billionaire, and a fellow multi-domain polymaths. So in this episode, we're going to learn more about his journey, how Mr. Eric got started with his business, investments, the charitable work he's been doing, also how he have written his newest book and why you're gonna get benefited from it inside out. We're going to learn everything in this show. So without further ado, let's welcome Mr. Rick to the show. Rick, welcome to the show, and how are you doing today?
Thank you so much for having me. I am very, very well today. I'm excited to speak with you today and learn a little bit more about your audience and also maybe share a few tips of wisdom.
Absolutely, and I'm super excited to learn a bit about yourself, your journey. The thing is, like, I get well as curious to learning different parts of the world, people from different kind of background. Everyone got their own story, their own journey, and the funny thing is, if there was an internet, we wouldn't probably met. We wouldn't know. Like, I wouldn't know your story. You wouldn't know my story. Our listeners wouldn't probably know because traditional way creating a radio show or like a TV show is really, really difficult things to do. So I'm grateful for this opportunity, also connecting with you. And you have like a really cool background, you being a CEO, you been an investor, you in a charitable causes, and you've been in a podcasting route as well. So let's walk through from very beginning of your journey, then we can talk about your newest upcoming book and the book launch. So like as you growing up as a child, like how's your upbringing looks like, how's your family looks like did you always knew like you going to be in the business world, doing everything you do right now?
What a great question. So I was brought up in the poverty of a two-bedroom home. My dad was out of work a good portion of the time. And so we would go out on the weekends to try to earn money however we could. A lot of times it was painting flagpoles or eventually became selling watches. So we would go and buy used watches from different places and sell them to professionals after we fixed them up a little bit. And so this was basically my upbringing. I knew I wanted to get into business when I became in college because I realized that I did not want to live, in poverty anymore. I did not want to live where I had to worry about money anymore. So I didn't have a positive vision of what I wanted to do or become, but all I knew is what I did not want, and what I did not want was to worry about money. So I began my first business in college when I was a junior, going into my junior year of college.
Hmm.
And by the time I was 26, I scaled it up to 400 employees here in the United States. And I started another business, and that we scaled up into 6 US states. And then I went to go help a nonprofit and was able to scale the nonprofit into 53 countries and a couple of thousand team members. And I did most of that all at the same time. So
Right.
I was growing two businesses plus a nonprofit all at the same time. And that was just really rewarding. But it was also because I had learned the basics of being a small business owner, learning how to hire staff, learning how to deal with people, learning how to have conversations with people that were, both above my pay grade and below my pay grade. And that helped me in both the nonprofit and the for-profit world.
Wow. And it's not easy to run like a one business, let alone like running like three different types of businesses. Like obviously one is non-profit. So how did you manage your time during that time?
So I spent 8 hours a day in the for-profit world running the businesses, and I spent an extra 8 hours a day in the nonprofit world. And I did that for probably 15 years. And that was just a great way for me to learn to get up early, work very, very hard, but also to get better. I had to begin to read a lot. I had to begin to study
Mhm.
different processes and be able to realize that my business skills that I learned in my day job are very applicable to my business skills in the nonprofit world. And I found that my competency, if I was also a person of integrity, that my competency plus my integrity eventually would become my identity.
Yeah.
So I've got to have a very high competency and a very high integrity. If I can't have those two things, I'm not going to have an identity that I want. And so I had to focus both on my integrity to the vertical and my competency to the horizontal to be able to get my identity correct.
Right. Yeah, makes sense. And like, do you still like own these companies or you completely sold it off?
Yeah, yeah. So the first one I still own, that has become a private equity commercial real estate firm.
Mhm.
And the other one, the next other business, it's still running. You'll read in the book the story how I exited that business. It's very intriguing how I exited that business. And then the nonprofit, I'm still doing work with nonprofits. Just I've moved on to different nonprofits. I don't stay with one for more than 8 to 10 years because I'm just trying to get leave a little bit of benefit and then move on and let other people take it from there.
Yeah, very interesting. So you have like your own mojo, which is like build a business, stay there for like 9, 10 years, then do for like a next venture, right?
For well, in the nonprofit
Mhm.
space, for a business, my original business from 25 years ago is still, it's still around. It just modulated. It's just sort of grown and changed over the time, but it's always been commercial real estate. We're now on the ownership investment side rather than just, maintaining and managing other people's real estate,
Yeah,
commercial real estate.
yeah, which makes sense. Yeah, definitely. So obviously, you spent lots of years in building your businesses, maintaining your business, also the non-profit side of it. So what's the being author, like writing your books, like what actually inspired you, like sharing your knowledge, and what's your book about? 9 Steps to Build a Life of Meaning.
This is a book because I realize certain men are not living up to their potential. And so I want to rip away the comfort enslaving their potential. I believe it's comfort that's basically enslaving them in their current lifestyle, their current mindsets. And so this book is purposed to do that. Now, the book, again, I told you a little bit about my 25-year work history there. I also have
Yeah,
some other experiences outside of that. I ran for U.S. Congress. I've done some other work as well that you'll learn about in the book. But through this 25, 27 years of experience, I also read 1,000 books. I also interviewed 100 of the most competent men alive, some of the most powerful men alive. I've had the opportunity to have conversations with them, and so I wanted to create a book that was the most densest book. That if you read one book, you would get 1,000 books worth of value, and you'd also get the experiences, the best experiences from all these 100 men. And so what I've done is I've worked to put all those things together into the 9 primary life principles
mm,
that you need to build a life of meaning. And I put it in this very, very easy to read book that allows you to basically get all of my knowledge, all of my experience in just about 200 pages.
yeah, very interesting. So obviously, it's been like your own journey as well as the people you have interviewed over the years and the people you worked with and everything, like everyone's wisdom is like coming across in the same book. So what is this like 9 steps like you're talking about when anyone purchasing their books? So which area like are you trying to connect with?
So this is geared specifically towards men. We deal with multiple subject matters in the book. And so I like to call it a self-improvement memoir. So I give some examples from my own life,
Hmm.
But then we spend two chapters looking at Alexander the Great, how he went and conquered the entire world, and some of the principles that we can use from that. And then I spend two more chapters talking about some of the great mythology and the principles we can learn from that, specifically with the storming of the city of Troy and the build up to that. And then I spend two chapters dealing with a couple of the most competent people that have ever existed. Number one, uh, President George Washington, and number two, Dr. Ben Carson, who obviously was the former Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. He alone has 60 honorary doctorates, to give you an idea about what sort of level of competency we're talking about. And then I finished up with some experiences from my own life. I've had some health challenges. I've had some family challenges. I've had some challenges, finding and keeping love along the way. And so those have all been provided. I've given you experience and I've given you wisdom that I've learned
Hmm.
throughout all those things in the book, but I've also given you historical relevant events that have happened so that you can see how these things manifest in the world. It's a system for putting together and managing the chaos that you see around you and putting it into order.
Yeah, that makes sense. And obviously, we see the success, and we don't see the toughness and the hardship you have to go through in order to become who you are. And there is like a so many sacrification like you have to go through in your life in order to like being who you are. So tell us a bit about your health issue. You mentioned like is that like during you started your business or when you was at the peak? Like what kind of illness if you open to share?
Yeah, so I went through a series of struggles that led me into about an 8 year period of mental fog where I was not able to think very clearly.
Mm,
And and so I tell the story about how I found myself in that position through, it was during some of these periods of very hard work. And then also what happened, how I got out of that. And you have to buy the book to hear the full story there. But I can tell you
sure.
that the health, like a man that's only healthy never knows about the beauty of being healed. And so if someone asks for a painless life, they have to realize that painless lives only birth joyless worlds. That it's the pain that's the avenue for the joy. It's the pain that God uses as a megaphone to rouse us because we're deaf without pain. And so we need pain in our lives. And that's a pretty consistent theme that I share, and it's also a consistent theme that I found in my life and lives of the great winners and the great leaders throughout history. That pain is a very answerable tutor. It's something that teaches us how to live right, and it corrects us when we need it. But also we have to learn from the sages of the past of the ancient wisdom. And so, whether it be the Bhagavad Gita, whether it be the Tao Te Ching, whether it be the Jewish and the Christian scriptures, in order to find true sources of wisdom, the same wisdom that everyone bases the new writings around, you have to go back. You have to go back, at least 1,000 or 2,000 years to get to sort of source wisdom, and that's the type of wisdom that I write about in this book. Um, and I talk about all three of those various, philosophies, but I also talk about more than that. The idea that we're coming up with new truths and new facts these days is all just a lie because everything that we know has been sourced through indirect sources that source these materials. So, for instance, if you read Shakespeare, you'll what you're really reading is a dilution of the Jewish and the Christian scriptures. If you're reading some modern day um, Asian wisdom, you're probably reading pieces from the Tao Te Ching. If you're reading other excerpts of other great Vedic literature. You're reading the same sorts of notes and themes that you may read about in the Bhagavad Gita and Arjuna and the stories there with Krishna. And so you see the same themes reemerge in the current literature, in the classical literature, and they all come from this ancient literature. And so we have to get back to that ancient literature once again as a people.
Yeah, that may totally make sense. And do you believe like the mental fog you had because of like you was doing too much, like you were taking too much on your plate?
No, it was triggered by a surgery that I had to have.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so I went through a time, so I did a 7 day fast. So a 7 day fast, no food, just water and juice for
Right.
7 days. And about day four, I got an immense amount of mental clarity. And I heard a voice tell me that I need to go to the doctor and get an executive health exam. And so I had my assistant find the very best executive health exam around. It's the same one that US presidents went to, the same doctors they go to. So I went there and they found a tumor. And as part of removing that tumor, one of the side effects happened to be, and I don't know exactly why this is, but the tumor had to do with some of the bloodlines that go into my brain. And when they went in to remove it, that's when the fog started happening,
Yeah.
just really from surgery. And so it was one of those things where had I not listened to that voice while I was fasting, I would be dead because the tumor was growing at such a rapid pace.
Right.
Um, but I'd rather be alive with a mental fog than to be dead.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad that I listened to it. But so that's also a principle too. Like we all have this intuition, we all have um, this voice that speaks to us, and you've got to listen to it many times.
Mm,
As long as your heart's right, your head's right, you're headed to the right direction. You're not living in in evil. You're not living in sin. You need to trust that inner intuition to guide you.
yeah. So like the water fast actually helps stop growing the tumor, right?
Well, it gave me the mental clarity
Hmm.
because I wasn't worried about food. It gave me mental clarity to realize that there was something wrong. I didn't know what was wrong, but I
Yeah.
knew I had to go and get checked up for that. And so when I went and went and got checked up, that's when they found it through some scans.
Okay. And how's your position during that time? Like obviously being successful in professional career, like a business and everything. When we hit our rock bottom with the health, like it get to like everyone. How's your uh mentality during that time? Like do you feel like a giving up, or like are you continuously fighting, or you are still hopeful? Like how's your process looks like?
Yeah, so I was hopeful, but the doctors told me to plan on spending, like best case scenario, spending 2 weeks in the ICU in the intensive care unit.
Mm,
And they said, things can go wrong. And so I wrote goodbye letters to my kids, to my three little girls. My little girls were each under 10 at that time. So I
right.
remember writing goodbye letters to them, telling them that daddy loves them, tell them what kind of man I'd want them to marry. I wrote a goodbye letter to my wife, and I had to set the business up in a way that they could keep running for a few years if something did happen to me. And so, yeah, that got me thinking about my mortality, right? Every man should be thinking about his mortality.
Yeah.
It should, and I tell you what, if you ever have to write a letter, a potential goodbye letter to your daughters, to your own kids, that puts your entire life in perspective.
Mm, totally. Yeah. Because I felt nearly that experience a couple of years back, and that
Oh,
was like
really?
a horrible. Yeah, I had like ulcerative colitis, which is bleeding through my bowel. I thought like I have a bowel cancer, and just going through so many specialists. They couldn't figure out what the problem was and what is it causing it. And the medication they put me on, that giving me more side effects. So only option was like removing the whole bowel, which I didn't want to do. And to managing the symptoms and going more medication and drugs and everything, like he was like a chaotic. So I know a few things about the water fasting, and I'll just focus on completely natural healing myself. And I did the like yourself. I didn't write any letters. I just told my wife I created a PDF file. It's like my debt plan, like where's my everything is the asset,
Yes.
wills, my business, how she can take care of her because I have a disabled child as well. He was like 1 year old that time, and obviously she cannot go and do a job or something. I was like, if I built a business, then why do you take over that? And if you don't like it, you can sell it later on, but you need to know exactly. And obviously, I was only 28 years old that time, so he wasn't an expected because people expect to do that when you're like 60, 70 years old, but I am like less than a 30 years old, and all of a sudden it happened. And I had to do same way, like mentality and everything, and it just changed me the way I used to think about life, that way I used to think about money, fame, and everything. Nowadays, you just had to care about that at all. It's like if I'm waking up healthy in my body and like mm, my family's all right, then that's it. Like I'm the richest person in the whole world. The money come and goes, the business, the reputation, and everything is just like I don't have any control over. Even though my body, I don't have a control over. One day, my wife took me for a walk, and my left side pulled me towards a car. I nearly hit a car in the main road. And that day I realized sometime, even though we say like a outcome is not in our control, but the things we do in control. But that day I realized the things we do, we don't have 100% control over, because sometimes your body doesn't give you that. Sometimes your mind doesn't help you. I had a brain fogs over 2 years. Some guy called me from India or something, like he trying to take all of my credit card and everything, and I was just giving him. And my wife says, like, who are you talking to? I was like, I don't know. Someone said like I need to give them my details, and I was giving him. I was like, like, oh, what are you even doing? And and that time I was like seriously ill. So sometimes life give you more perspective, and this is the time. It's hard sometimes, like you being hopeful and how things are, because it's a reality though. Like I saw other people are dying under age 30. One of my best friend died when I was a year six, so he was like about 12, 11, 12, something like that. He had a blood cancer. He just we on the summer vacation. After we came back, he wasn't there. Like he just gone within 6 weeks. And another friend, he passed away with he had a uh, some different kind of cancer, and he was about 25 years old. He just gone, he had to sell everything, his house and everything. It was stage 4, and he knew like he's not gonna make it. He sold everything and just trying to be religious in that, and then completely change him. So I was like, yeah, that could be me as well. Like I have to be realistic. Like I cannot have the hope like I'm gonna live forever. It could be my time now, and I have to plan it and believe and accepting it. That was the important, and then take one day at a time and moving forward. So yeah, it was tough time, and I
Wow.
can completely relate with you, like how you been with that. Yeah.
Now, I appreciate you sharing that with me. That's very, very honest and very open. I mean, you've been through some struggles there, and I think that's the same thing. I had the same thought that you did. Like, no one lives forever, but I think that sort of deep down, we all sort of kind of think that we might,
Hmm.
like we might, we might live forever. I think there's something inborn with us that suspects it's possible that we could live forever.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you hit to your health, and that changes, or like a hit to your family, your children, or like your spouse, then it's bad, because I learned very early. When I was 13, I lost both of my parents within 90 days, both of them gone. My dad had a stage 4 cancer. My mom couldn't take that, and she had a heart attack. So they both gone within like a blink of an eye, and just like it was really traumatizing for me. And I had to get out of the stress. It's quite tough. And then during the COVID, we blessed with our first child. I was so excited, and everything was smooth till like that day he was born. It's like for 5 minutes or something, like he wasn't breathing properly. The oxygen is not going. He swallowed some liquid, and that actually took him like a brain damage, and we nearly lost him. Like the doctor told us he's not going to make it for next 24 hours. He have a 0% of chance of surviving. And it was another devastating moment. Like I have to bury my son on my death birthday. Like he born on 7th, and the doctor told us he's not going to make it on 8th, so he's going to be lasting next 24 hours probably maximum. And then we have to bury him on 9th, which is my birthday day. And it was like a really tough moment of my life, and knowing like you got so much joy, so much expectation, and all of a sudden like you have to bury that, and the life goes so fast. And then when that happened, like obviously he made it through, he survived, he progressed, but obviously he still got his disability, and he's no normal child, he's a special child. And the year after, like I hit the rock bottom with my own health, and life completely changed me in a ways to think and everything. It's just so unpredictable, and it's really, really crazy. Sometimes it teaches you about life is so hard way.
Yes, yes, yes. No,
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that. I would say that the first five steps of my book deal with the very same thing that you just talked about. My version, not the exact same thing, but similar situations. And then step number five deals specifically with the role of pain and struggle in our lives and how it's used in the ultimate sense. And
Hmm.
so I think that that may be helpful for people that are listening that would want to understand why we have pain, why we have struggle
Yeah,
in this world, what the purpose of it is. So it's step number 5.
yeah, that's great. So, Rika, we are nearly coming to end of this podcast. I have a two question before we wrap up here. One is like with all of the hardship you had to go through about your illness, your family, businesses, there will be like obviously ups and downs and everything. You have to do things different ways. What is the number one lesson you have learned when it comes to professional and also your personal life?
That nothing that you have not given away will ever really be yours. That if you want confidence, you have to give away what you do in practice to help to become better. You have to have iteration, you have to have practice. That if you ever want to have an investment, you have to give it away to an entrepreneur if you ever hope to keep up with inflation. Because if you don't give it away to someone else to invest, you you lose all your money to inflation. That if you ever want a seed to a tree to shade you or to give you fruit, you have to plant the seed in the ground and let it die first before it ever becomes a tree to shade you and give you fruit. That if you ever want love, you have to give love. If you ever want your life, if you ever want to truly live, you have to give away your life to someone else. Um, and I think that that's the principle that all of reality, not only our personal lives, but also our business lives, operates under. And C.S. Lewis, I'll use this since he's a former fellow British uh, citizen with you. What C.S. Lewis said was that nothing that you have not given away will ever really be yours. Nothing that you have not given away will ever really be yours. And so if you ever want to have a life, you have to give a life. If you ever want love, you have to be able to give love. Um, a life not fully lived is just a death. And so whenever we think about what we are doing with our lives, when we think about the main principle of life, we have to direct our lives to helping not only others, but also directing our lives towards living a life that's pleasing to God.
Yeah, well, that's great. So my last question for you, if anyone wants to like start their own business or like their dream project and they are like scared or skeptical, like shall I go and do the jump or not? Like what advice are you going to give them?
Yeah, so a couple of things. First off, I do have a list of the 7 new entrepreneur books on my website, the 7 that I recommend. I actually just put them up there a couple of days ago. These are 7 books that I personally use to start my entrepreneurial endeavor. And these are 7 books that I recommend people read. So if you go to rickwalker.com, they can find it there. Um, but I think that you have to realize that you have to build your competency and your integrity side by side. I'm going to go back the same full circle to where we started. That if you ever want to have an identity that's worth anything, if you ever want an identity where people respect you and revere you, and they come to you for advice, you have to have your competency and your integrity higher than what the normal people see around them. So you have to be able to execute with excellence, and you also have to have the highest possible integrity. That means you have to aim your life higher at the things that are holy, that are supernatural, the things that are eternal in nature, and don't just focus on the day-to-day stuff. If you focus on the day-to-day stuff, you'll just die like a normal man. But if you look up, you aim high, there's hope that you may find a bit of the supernatural that will imbibe you and lead you down to a path of meaning and relevance.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. So, Mr. Rekha, we're nearly coming to the end of this podcast. So, if anyone wants to learn more about yourself or your business, where's the best place to find you?
Rickwalker.com, or you can search Rick Walker on Amazon. We're selling in the UK, we're selling in India, we're selling all over the world. 9 Steps to Build a Life of Meaning is the name of my book, 9 Steps to Build a Life of Meaning, and it comes out on July 5th.
All right, that's great. Thank you so much for sharing that and sharing your journey with our listeners and also about your book. I really wish you very best of luck with everything and your book launch as well. Thank you so much for your time today.
Well, thank you so much. Appreciate you. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Okay.
So that's a wrap, guys. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast episode with Mr. Rick Walker. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. If anyone wants to learn more about him, you can visit his website and you can find everything about him. Also, I'm going to put all the links in the description for you to get to him easily. So until then, talk to you in the next episode. Take care.